All right, after 2 intense days of negotiations, China and the US have reached a temporary agreement or a trade truce. It's the most significant breakthrough since the trade war began back in 2018. It created a so-called win-win moment that brought short-term relief to global markets. As soon as the joint statement was released, China's state media kicked off a full-blown propaganda campaign declaring victory. Surprisingly, some American media echoed Beijing's narrative. MSNBC claimed the US just blinked. Really? So today, let's cut through the noise and take a closer look. What's actually in this agreement? And who blinked? And who really came out on top? And what hidden concessions did China make? In my opinion, they made 4 major concessions. And despite all the narratives, how does Beijing truly feel about this deal? So first things first, what's in the agreement? I'm going to give you a very brief summary. Based on the joint statement, here's what the U.S. China agreed. First, the United States will maintain a 50% total tariff on Chinese goods. This includes 20% from Section 301 tariffs, which came from Trump's original trade war number 1, 20% fentanyl-related punitive tariffs imposed in February and March, 10% reciprocal tariffs from the April 2nd global tariff hike. Now, China, in return, will impose only a 10% tariff on U.S. goods and will drop all other retaliatory measures, including the rare earth export ban. So it's a US 50% and China 10%. Many media outlets used 30% versus 10%. They failed to mention that the 20% in existing tariffs remained untouched. At the Geneva talks, China essentially folded. Its delegation dropped tariffs on US goods from 125% to just 10% and canceled all other countermeasures, including rare earth bans. And this means all 2025 retaliatory measures are gone. And also, China has fully accepted US punitive tariffs. Let's put it this way. Only a fool in Washington would say no to this offer. And there's more. The US has kept the punitive tariffs on strategic sectors, including automobiles, semiconductors, steel and aluminum, and pharmaceuticals. And these tariffs range from 50 to 100%. But since China exports little in these sectors, comparatively speaking, they only nudge the average tariff up by 4 to 5% on a weighted scale. So that puts the real average US tariff on China at about 54%. The bottom line is US tariffs on China, 54%. That's up from 40% in March. That's a 14 points uptick. And China's tariffs on US is 10%. That's down 5 points. So let me just show you this slide. So this is a chronological order of China's tariffs or the US China tariffs. So it's pretty clear who won and who lost. So to summarize, Beijing made 4 major concessions. First, China effectively accepted all pre-April 2nd US tariffs. 20% from Section 301 from Trade War 1.0, 20% for fentanyl, plus a new 10% base tariff, totaling 50%. In contrast, China is only imposing 10% on US goods. That's a 40-point gap. And this was China's first major concession. Second, China agreed to suspend all non-tariff countermeasures, including, since April 22nd, the rare earth bans, soybean restrictions, and investigations into US firms like DuPont. However, the United States made no reciprocal move. For example, the ban on NVIDIA's H20 chip remains firmly in place. Third, China reportedly agreed to specific US demands related to fentanyl, which has caused America's opioid crisis. Meanwhile, the 20% US fentanyl tariffs still hold, along with 25% sectional tariffs on steel, aluminum, autos, and EVs. Fourth, while not formally detailed, reports have suggested that China quietly pledged to increase imports of American agricultural and energy products. So that's obviously a move aimed at narrowing the trade gap and placating Washington. So this agreement is a temporary reprieve for Xi Jinping. It gave Xi Jinping and the CCP a desperately needed break. a moment to catch their breath before the ship sinks. To put it bluntly, the mood inside the CCP leadership right now can be described as it's like being granted a royal pardon. And it is not just people like me who took notice. I'm not making this up. The Chinese public have also noticed the mood change. And how do we know that? Well, sometimes you just need to watch what they want you to watch. A recent curious programming change on CCTV's movie channel became public interest in China. Monday morning, Hubei's an official government news outlet called Changjiang Cloud News. It's a state media outlet. It posted a screenshot of CCTV movie schedule on Weibo. The post announced that, quote, following substantial progress in U.S. China economic and trade talks, CCTV would air 2 parts of a movie called New York, I Love You on Monday night at 10:24 p.m. and then 11 p.m. And then after that, the post tagged CCTV channel schedules New York, I Love You quickly went viral and shot to the top of Weibo's trending list. And Chinese public smelled something. But this movie change was a red flag because it felt oh so familiar. Back in 2018 and 2019, when the U.S. China trade war 1.0 was heating up, CCTV responded with a stream of anti-American Korean War movies like Battle on Shangganling, right? And also there's a movie called 英雄儿女 or Heroic Sons and Daughters. These are very patriotic CCP propaganda movies. But right after a call took place between Xi Jinping and Trump, the same movie channel pivoted dramatically and aired the movie called Grief Over the Yellow River. It's a love story between a Chinese revolutionary soldier and American Flying Tigers pilot. I don't know how that can be possible, but apparently there's a movie made about it. This time in Trade War 2.0, the declaration of love to America was even more overt and embarrassing because Chinese netizens took notice and brainwashed Chinese nationalists find it hard to take. And soon the CCTV replaced the movie, not once, but twice. First, they replaced New York, I Love You with a 1936 old movie, Camille. Okay, then realizing they made another mistake, the CCTV movie channel replaced Camille with a feel-good Italian comedy called Welcome to the South. So why these movies matter? Well, don't assume these changes were random. They reflect Beijing's internal mood better than any press release. New York, I Love You, and the movie The Grief Over the Yellow River share the same message. China knows it cannot survive without the Americans and does not want to be separate from America. Both movies are about finding true love and needing each other. And Camille was likely pulled after internal pushback. Why? Well, because it's a tragic love story, right? For a regime that compares U.S. China relations to a couple and itself to the female lead, that's a bad omen. The female lead in La Traviata or in Camille died tragically. So in the end, CCTV settled on the movie called Welcome to the South. It's a lighthearted, feel-good 2010 Italian comedy, which is about cultural misunderstandings. It's a sign that Beijing needed to lighten the mood and save face. So, who really blinked and who won? If you're still wondering who won the trade talks, just look at the trail of these Chinese movies. They spoke volume about Beijing's true mindset.